David Cleandon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, in general, in line with the theme of the evening, I think, I reiterate the Greens are supporting this bill, but we do so reluctantly and only at this stage committing to support to select committee, primarily because we believe it is important that the people of Mangawhai and of the Kaipara more generally have an opportunity and a forum to come say their piece and to get some answers which have been sadly lacking to date. And I would hope, I have been slightly concerned to hear some comments about the scope of the committee, rather of the bill. I would hope that the attitude of the committee is to be very open and inviting and inclusive of submitters, not to be overly restricted or to endeavour to limit the very reasonable conversation that needs to take place around this bill. So in line with one or two others, I'd also have to comment on the member who's presenting this bill. It is a local bill, not a member's bill, and while there is a long list of reasons one might choose to be critical of Mr Sabin, I think this bill is not one of them. This is, I think he's fulfilling his duty as a local member to bring this bill to the House. Sir, like other members, well, I've seen a letter from the Chair of the Commissioners, and it's a useful document. There's a line in it I particularly like because I like understatement. It says, since 2006, the Kaipara District Council made a succession of decisions that failed to comply with the letter and the spirit of the Local Government Act. And that is a wonderful piece of understatement there. So what in fact has happened, of course, the Council has acted illegally, I'd argue immorally, and they have left a significant mess and a considerable financial and other burdens on the ratepayers and residents in that place. So the point's also been made tonight that, and indeed it's in this letter from the Chief Commissioner, yes, Chair of Commissioners, I'm sorry. All the irregular rating decisions made by the Council could have been made in a perfectly legal and legitimate way that would have resulted in the same impact on ratepayers. And technically that's quite true, there's no disputing that. In practice, however, I seriously doubt that if light had been shone on what was actually going on, if the ratepayers had known what financial and other commitments were being made in their name, I don't believe things would have gone as far or as terribly wrong as in fact they did go. So I think it's they're slightly ingenuous to suggest that these things could have occurred in any case. This is why we have a robust local democracy in this country, at least in most of this country, and I think it's important not to overlook that. I do take issue too with the suggestion that the opposition in Kaipara and around the Mangawhai is from the classic phrase of small but vocal minority. I went to a meeting in Mangawhai some 6 or so weeks ago, a sort of a bleakish Sunday afternoon. There were over 200 people in that meeting, and this is after many meetings and many engagements. And I think that reflects the level of concern, the level of engagement. I think to say it's a minority, well, yes, it always is, but I do think they represent the majority of people who have been treated very badly, whose interests have not been well served. And I think we ought to realise that if you can get a hall full of people with an excess of 200 people on a given Sunday, that represents a very deep-seated and widespread opposition to what has been going on in that area. So there's some commentary again in the letter, particularly about the Mangawhai Mangawhai Residents and Ratepayers Association. And I think it's somewhat easy to belittle that group. I think their approach is somewhat more sophisticated than perhaps has been given credit to them. They are not simply an opposing group. They are coming up, they have outlined a proposed solution, a set of solutions, and yes, it might be difficult reading for some, but I think it has to be acknowledged that they have come forward in a constructive way, offering a pathway through. And it's not a simple path, but nor is it a simple problem. They make the point that there's an interesting legal distinction potentially to be made between the ratepayers and the council and who actually carries liability. And I won't comment on the rights and wrongs of that, A, because I'm not a lawyer, and B, because I understand that is the point of law that they'll be taking to the High Court. And I think good on them. So they make the point that they feel very badly let down by the auditor in this process, and again with good reason. I think, and finally, I would make the point that good projects that come in under budget and on time are carefully managed, rigorously managed projects where somebody's in charge. Sir, in this case, clearly that was absent. The ratepayers are bearing the brunt of financial and other mismanagement. We need to look very hard at this bill. Thank you.
In reply, Mike Sabin.
Mr. Speaker, no one is a fan of retrospective legislation, and it is a